Hey, everybody, welcome to Kansas City Business Cast. Technically, we are in season 3. I'm still figuring out my intros ever since season 1 and we got out of the studio environment. But just to get the spam out of the way, I don't like ambushing all of our listeners with, ways you can support us and all that. But remember, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We've got a link at the bottom of every episode following the show notes with our guests of how you can support us on Spotify with, donations of 99 cents, $4.99 or $9.99 a month. That definitely helps us. That is absolutely what got us to this point where we could have the subscription fees for the other things that we use. So we appreciate your support. Without further ado, one of my great friends, Heather, actually one of the folks that inspired this podcast, first person to return to the podcast, first person to talk about AI. And I don't know that I know anyone else who is more passionate about supporting the small business owner. Heather Snyder, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Michael. What an intro. You're too kind.
Thank you. Well, I guess I should say it too, but I also thought badass of the highest order because,
Jeez.
for me, and I think we kind of went there in the first episode that we did, which now we're about to get to 1 year, right? Which is incredible to think about. But I remember the first time that I met you at, the networking group that we've talked about ad nauseum on this show. And then we had a meetup at McLean's, I think in Overland Park, where you were talking about, your journey and what you learned being in marketing and how you kind of naturally gravitated towards sales. And then the way that you speak about it too, it's almost like everything you're talking about when it comes to sales strategy and then also things from your personal history, whether you intend it to be or not, I receive it. My wife has received it as it's a call to action. And I feel like, there are very few people in our space, especially here in KC, that do it the way you do it. And so when you made the announcement about ProMode.ai, which we're going to talk about. You made the announcement on LinkedIn. I just kind of smiled ear to ear. Like, I don't know that I could have muscled any more millimeters of magnitude when I saw that, because I was like, you know what? Of course she did. Of course she did that. Of course, this is like a revolutionary thing. Of course, she's found a way to put a saddle on AI, make it so much more meaningful. And like, let's go, Team Heather. Like, I just was so excited. And then naturally, I think as we've been talking the last couple of weeks about, telling people what it's about, I know we're going to do that today. We'll also go a little bit further into your personal story as well, cover some ground that we didn't last time. But for everybody listening, episode 7 was with Heather Snyder, the marketing agent. Of course, that episode's still up and has been one of our most listened to episodes ever as well. So anyway, I've been pumping you up enough here.
My gosh.
Couldn't help it. I talked to myself too before the thing. I was like, don't geek out too much. Don't geek out too much, man. But yeah, you're here and we're so excited to have you back on the show.
I so appreciate it. And it's like, in business, of course, you want clients, you want to talk to prospects, people who could possibly do business with you. But I think it's so underplayed how important it is to have just allies, just people who do grin ear to ear when you do cool stuff, You may never be a client of mine, right? It may never make sense that you use ProMode, but just knowing that you're like in the hoorah camp, as I am with your ventures, it's not to be downplayed because it can be, being an entrepreneur can be a lonely space, right? We don't always feel understood. We don't always move the same way as the people around us. And just having that encouragement is super huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've gone into that on the show. Like, none of us were taught how to do this. We didn't learn it growing up in school or wherever. But like in your case too, it's come out in our previous conversations, like, you don't have a college degree in marketing. Like, you didn't go from a bachelor's program right into an internship. Like, you've literally learned it from the school of hard knocks. Like, so maybe let's do that, right? Like, let's just kind of briefly highlight to set the stage of how you got into marketing, and obviously we covered some of that ground in episode 7, but like thinking about it now, especially with where you're at today, being co-founder of ProMode.ai, how did that kind of start and how did you get into this line of work?
How did I get into marketing? It's funny. I've been thinking a lot lately, maybe because I'm almost 40 and it's one of those milestones where you kind of reflect on your life and think about, I've been thinking a lot about myself as a child. What was I like as a child? Because we get so into adult life, right? Like raising kids and taking care of the bills and going to work. And we don't think every day. I certainly didn't about, well, what did I do when I was a kid? And I've been reminded, my siblings have reminded me lately just about how I was constantly starting businesses, constantly wrangling neighbor kids into, let's start a business. We're going to have a stick picking up business. And now we're going to have a cleaning business and a babysitting business. And there was always some business I wanted to start from like 6 or 7 years old. And what's funny is what I wanted to do was draw the logo and draw the flyer and come up with the name for the business. And I wanted to go sell the business to the neighbors, to, friends, family, whatever. I wanted to do the sales and marketing. I had no idea that's what it was. And I don't come from business people, right? My dad was an oil field guy and my mom stayed at home. My grandfather was a master plasterer. These are no one entrepreneurial, nobody who talked business. So I think something that might have been more recognized in me as a young child, if I was in a different family, perhaps, those things were there, but I just thought I was playing. That's just what was fun to me. But I would want to sell that cleaning job business or that babysitting job business. And then I wanted someone else to come in and do the thing that I had sold. I didn't want to do it. No, I'm not going to pick up sticks. I'm going to go sell the next job for picking up sticks. And I'm going to work on this flyer a little bit more. So it's like who we are is there from such a young age, and I'm sure you can see things in your own childhood where you're like, oh yeah, that's little Michael trying to find his spark and it was there. Can you
Yeah.
think of any examples of that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, well, like I was always it kind of started in, I think it was like third grade. Like I was really good at drawing and like, I'm really good, like with my daughters right now, like they know how to draw a proper dinosaur. They know how to draw a
Ooh,
proper, cyclops, all kinds of other mythical creatures that like I've been drawing like my whole life. Right. And like
wait, are you
everybody
saying
knows,
are you saying dinosaurs are mythical creatures?
no, they're not. They're not. They're not. And cyclopses aren't either, actually. There's a reason for cyclopean architecture and why they call it that. So, anyway, but like I was the dude who like the friends would commission me to like draw dinosaurs in the class. And then, I don't know that like I could have imagined myself being a podcaster. I think I've talked about like my intense fear of putting myself out there. I was off social media for a long time, but I've always been a good connector with people. Like I've always been, semi funny, like amateur comedian, finding all the weird stuff. But what I realized from a young age was that I was embraced for all my weirdness and my zaniness. That's what people loved about me. When I got older, like I tried to kill and suffocate, and like I use those very intense languages because that's exactly what I think like typical corporate environments try to do to me. And so go figure, like now, yeah, I'm sharing about, my life more, about my business. And I think you and I have talked about this, but like all business is personal.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I take it to that next level too, is like I think it's all spiritual, but like, yeah, I've always been a good connector with people. I've always liked seeing something come together. Don't know that I've even found my niche yet, right? This is my niche now. But yeah, I definitely see the influence of little Michael, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's fun. Yeah, so I
yep.
mean, I think I always had that in me from a young age, and then got married pretty young, had babies, fully believed I would be a stay-at-home wife forever. And to be honest, that was really the trajectory of my upbringing. That was the intention of the education I had and the climate I grew up in. But then things changed and ended up getting divorced, had to create a career from nothing. And that's when it's kind of like I don't know how to really describe it. It's like the cylinder started firing in a different way, but the cylinders were always there. They were just kind of dusted off and motivated by life to figure out how to make something from my skill set. And I've always been super curious, love learning, love reading, love learning from other people's experiences. So I just grabbed business by the horns and it just steeped myself in learning about sales. And that was motivated by, I got a real estate license after divorce, thought I would be a realtor, which is a pretty common divorcee career path. I didn't really realize it, but there is a reason that it's common. It's a pretty short road to get to that point. And there's a possibility of making a very good living. So got the real estate license and then found out that, oh, I have to develop this whole other skill of sales in order to be a realtor. It's just a very pragmatic lesson. Like if you're not around business people, you're going to have to accidentally learn a lot of these things like I did, which is exactly what happened. Get real estate license, loved learning about the law of real estate and contract negotiation and all the things that go into making a real estate deal successful. Really enjoyed that. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready for my first client. And then there's no clients. And very little direction or education about how to get that first client. So beat my head against that wall for a while and just learning about sales. Like, what is this? What is this client acquisition thing? I'm like, if I'm going to do anything, I have to get good at this part. And later,
Absolutely.
over the years, I've found out that there are many, many professions that share that problem, right? Like if you're an attorney, right? If you go to law school for years and years and dump all kinds of money into learning how to be an attorney or a doctor, engineer. Well, if you plan on being self-employed and having an independent practice where you're doing the thing you're really, really good at, guess what? You also have to get really, really good at getting clients, at sales, which is nothing that you've
Absolutely.
been taught in your studies to that point. So it's really interesting that that's such a universal situation in business. But then I fell in love with sales. I was like, this is amazing. I love the process of it. I love selling something that I believe in. And that was sort of what motivated me into B2B sales almost a decade ago.
And B2B is business to business for folks who don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that first B2B sales job was in the marketing space. It was trade show exhibits, custom designed trade show exhibits at a premium price point, very traditional sales environment with a hierarchy of salespeople and CRM where every account was sat on by somebody. So it's kind of like selling with your hands tied behind your back in a sense. But I knew if I can even get kind of good at sales in this environment, I can kill it outside of this environment. So that's kind of what my plan was. And it seems to have worked.
Absolutely. And from your time in the last couple of years, because we kind of talked about your transition into the marketing agent, which folks can go back, they can listen to get their education in that part of your journey. Since you had been working with the marketing agent, what some sort, I guess, lessons or nuggets had you picked up? What did you learn through that journey of operating as a person who can help companies find the right marketing agencies? What did you learn through that process?
Okay, this is kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, I'm good
First, I
at
want to
those.
say, it's great, and we're gonna be stepping into some treacherous territory here in a minute. So, first of all, the marketing agent, my business does two things. Well, it did two things. Now it only does one thing.
Mm.
So the goal was that I would be sort of a procurement agent for businesses to help them find the right marketing agencies, to fit them with agencies based on the capabilities, the experience of those agencies, as well as the goal, budget, and timeline of that client. And the reason for that was because in my years of selling digital marketing, working for an agency, I noticed over and over again that people who talk to agencies, prospects, right, have no idea what to ask. They rarely ask the right questions. It's a huge leap of trust that they have to take to make that decision. And my goal was to help them make better decisions with asking better questions, doing more research on those agencies before that decision's made, and likely using more than one agency per client so that we can really tap into best of breed and not sacrifice quality and make sure we get the best rates, really just kind of be their Sherpa in the marketing agency journey. And I no longer do that, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And then the other thing that the marketing agent does, I feel like I'm talking about myself in third person when I say that, is media buying, more specifically, conservative media buying. So I work with national brands that want to advertise on places like SiriusXM, especially their conservative channels, but also the more neutral or liberal channels are fine, but also companies that want sponsorship live reads on things like the Daily Wire, right? Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Jordan Peterson, as well as Tucker Carlson Network and Bill O'Reilly, those kinds of avenues. So I help companies find the best paths in that space and develop those campaigns and manage those deals. So still doing that. It's a very boutique service, it's not the kind of thing where you're going to have 100 clients, but it's a very white glove kind of level of service that I give to those clients, and I love it. But the reason that ProMode was developed kind of dovetails into the question you just asked of what did I learn in the last year. So in this journey of helping clients find the right agencies, I talked to dozens of agencies, at least 50, probably more. There's 14,000 agencies in the US.
Right.
And I knew going in, I had my hypothesis right before this experiment over the last year and a half. I knew that a lot of those agencies were not fantastic. Let's be honest, right? And before I go further, I want to preface and say, I know many amazing marketers. I know many people in marketing who are killer at their jobs, specifically branding agencies. I think there are some great ones here in Kansas City. And Kansas City is a very special place for marketing. There are lots and lots of agencies. Many of those have spun off from big agency houses like VML, Barkley, and they've grown these incredible marketers who have then spun off their own businesses. And there's lots of great ones. Hello Big Idea is a great one. Here in KC, Willoughby is a great one. Novella Brand House. These are branding agencies that do an excellent job. And my forecast, for what it's worth, is that branding agencies are not going anywhere, maybe ever, for a while, for sure, in the wake of AI. I think there is a solid case for branding agencies. Those are agencies that are developing new ideas, messaging, logos, brands, right? And curating that experience at a very high level. So those are great. But what I was seeing over and over again and talking to marketing agencies, more full service agencies that do social media management, SEO, email marketing, blogging, just kind of the ongoing day-to-day alternative to in-house marketing department style work. I was not impressed over and over again. And not only was I not impressed with deliverables, with client testimonials, with case studies, with turnover of both clients and employees, I was hearing a lot of the same problems that the agencies were experiencing, right? Things like having a hard time finding people to hire for the price point that they could afford to hire them, very low margins, even though the price point is very high, right? So I started just kind of looking around saying, this is very broken. This whole model is very broken. And it felt like it was on its way out, like getting worse month by month. And then I saw some really interesting research that showed that, in the early 2000s, digital marketing spend among companies skyrocketed, right? Everybody started investing in digital marketing. Everybody's all of a sudden spending $1,500, $2,000 or more a month just on SEO. And so spend goes way up. And about 2010 is when we saw this huge leap in the number of digital marketing agencies, because that spend budget goes way up.
To answer for that, right?
Exactly. So there's all these agencies that have popped up. And between like 2010, and I could be mistaken on some dates here, but between 2010 and 2015, 2018, somewhere in there, the margins for digital marketing agencies were fantastic. Great business model. That's why everybody was getting into it. It's amazing. And clients, I think, were able to be relatively happy because those margins were high enough at those agencies that they could afford to hire great people and keep them for a while. And it's kind of the heyday of digital marketing agencies. But then what's happened in the last 5 years is companies are not spending more in their digital marketing, and the overhead is getting higher for agencies. Everything from the commercial real estate that they're officing in to the tech stacks that they have to build and own in order to run work for their clients. Tech fees are getting outrageous, as well as the labor. The labor market is crazy in marketing. We have account managers, fairly new account managers wanting 6 figures from the jump, when these agencies have like 60% of that earmarked. There's not a meeting of the minds there. So it's created this squeeze of this pressure of agencies are not making money anymore. Clients are not spending more money on this same thing anymore. And it's creating an environment where clients are frustrated. Agency owners are not very happy either. And it's just a very interesting time for AI to pop on the scene and disrupt the whole thing. And that's what ProMode is doing in a very big way.
Absolutely. So, I love that too, how you used data to make, this kind of decision to figure out, where you needed to go with this. You had already talked about too, I think you were already using AI, and like, I've got friends in marketing too. Like, I think ChatGPT was the first one where like people were like, how do I get this thing to write, some content for me to at least get it going, because it's going to take me hours to do this. And if I can get a solid start with ChatGPT or whatever, and then I can have the human element obviously still edit, that was great. And I think we talked about that too. Like, if you're not using or learning AI, you better start. And, there was that saying that was really popular back in 2023. Do you remember it? It was, AI won't replace jobs. It will replace people who don't use it, or it's the people that use it are going to be able to stay in their jobs, kind of thing. But AI, I think, has been mostly, lately now, it's very much, it feels overhyped in the sense that people assume that all AI is super smart AI, that all of it works the same, and that if you just spend a month learning how to use it, it's going to be a game changer. Segue to my next point of what I'm hearing now with people who are hiring marketing agencies. They're saying, you know what? My agency uses AI, and my posts look exactly like every other freaking client of theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we're starting to see now too that, like, no, not all AI is alike. And actually, the people that have learned how to use it need to now level up. And again, this is no insult to people that have started using it. I'm so proud of you out there. If you've learned how to use AI to shave off hours of spending more time with your family, I know I've started using it. Use it. I'll just tell everybody, every guest's cover image is made by AI. I am still writing the show notes because I need to put the guest touch on that. But like, I'm using AI all that I can. I use AI in Riverside, and it has been because I don't have 20 freaking hours every episode anymore. And my wife certainly can't handle the kids for that long.
Yeah.
So I'll reel it all back in to say, like, we're seeing marketing agencies use it, but a lot of them, they're not using it well, to be
Mm-hmm.
completely frank,
Yeah.
Um,
I would agree with that. And just to kind of step back for a minute, we hear the term AI all the time. It's such a buzzword. And just like any overused word or term, it can kind of start to lose any meaning at all. If it's everywhere, then it means nothing to anyone. And people just kind of drown it out. Like, what is another AI. Like we see it everywhere. Every tech tool that you subscribe to has AI component in it, right? From your CRM to your email, social media, like that little sparkle of AI, it's everywhere. And you're right, it can be confusing, and I think it can lead people to believe that all AI is the same. And it's not at all. And how you use it matters. It matters a lot. And agencies are definitely using AI. Every agency I'm aware of that is doing those ongoing marketing efforts like social media, email marketing, blogging, they're all using AI to create that content. And in 10 minutes, I could teach you how to make content as good as that agency is making with those tools. It is not hard. And I think the jig's about to be up for agencies that are continuing to sell these deliverables at their previous price point based on hours when they're using a chat GPT to do it in 10 minutes. It's unwarranted. So ProMode uses a completely different kind of AI that we'll get into. It's a totally different methodology that I can explain, but yeah, there are a lot of different directions in AI, and it is not all created equal.
Absolutely. I just really appreciate that going back to your childhood too, how you talk about like I was the person who was drawing logos, making the business ideas and all that. Like you take lessons that you learn in business and you make something new to actually solve that problem that you're observing. And
Mm-hmm.
so Pro Mode, let's get into that. Like tell us about Pro Mode. How does it solve that problem that you observed? And then what problems is it going to continue to solve rest of this year? Where do you see it going? And we can just unpack however we need to.
Sure. Well, first, I'd like to go into kind of the problems that ProMode is solving, and then we'll talk about how it works and get
Absolutely.
into some of the tech stuff. So in addition to the pricing and clients paying too much for what they're currently getting, there's a lot of other problems that I have heard many, many, many times over the years from clients in their experience working with agencies. One of those is the approval process. So when you're a client at a marketing agency and that agency is creating, let's say, social media content for you and blogging and email newsletters, there's going to be a back and forth approval process that could be tens of emails over the course of months. And just thinking from a super practical perspective, like if you're a business owner, you are getting hundreds of emails every day and you're busy trying to run your business, especially in this SMB kind of realm. You are a busy person, responding to emails, managing your team, taking care of your own clients. To open an email, review content, and then respond immediately with edits and revisions to an agency, that's a big ask. And then to have that agency go redo those things and then send it back to you for a final revision, it's such a bottleneck of a system. So that approval process drag in combination with the price point and the hourly billing model of agencies means that these companies, and for us, that's the mid-market B2B companies who we're reaching out to for ProMode, they are not producing nearly enough content to move the needle. So because of these bottlenecks with approval processes and hourly billing sort of restricting how much content is even created to approve, and then how much content is actually being approved by the business owner because of this belabored process, it means there's not much content going out at all. And if you compare the difference between like enterprise level B2B content publication to mid-market content, the difference is wild. Enterprise level is pumping out an average of 80 pieces of content a month. Mid-market B2B companies, more like 12 to 20 pieces of content a month. And 20 is generous. It's usually closer to that 12 mark. And by pieces of content, I mean a social post, a blog, one email, right? So there's not enough content to move the needle and even see any benefits from top of funnel marketing. So that's one problem we wanted to solve. We wanted to make approvals more simple. Let's get the middleman out of the way. Here's the content. Here's the person approving the content. It's in a portal. It's in one platform. And you can have multiple people within your organization be able to pop in and approve and review and approve that content. And you can set different permissions, right? So maybe Steve, the project manager, can add content, like add images and videos and updates on the company, but maybe he doesn't get to approve content. That's fine. You can set those limitations with the goal of saying, how can we get as much content out as possible that's actually good in a super easy, simple way?
So awesome. And I'm already thinking, my gears are already turning about, like, I love how you said too, Steve, the project manager, who's not a marketing person, but being like okay, so mid-level business, right? Is that what you're saying? Like medium-sized business?
Yeah, small to medium. I mean, our price point is so attractive that, I mean, if you're a $1 million a year B2B company, this is certainly within your budget, but it's also powerful enough. I mean, one of our test clients right now is a $100 million construction company, and it's plenty of juice for them. So it serves a broad range.
I just love how you're able to have people who are on the front lines submit like updates, content, because oftentimes, right, in a company, and especially if you have an external agency, you got people who are not on the same intranet, the same domains. You're good. The same, they're not in the same Teams chats, things like that. So if you have a portal where everybody can come and you say, Steve, the project manager, hey, we just need some videos from the shop or the job site. In a construction industry, it's so important to get employees like weaponizing their marketing with like, hey, I'm at the job site, y'all. It's me, Steve. Here's my electrical folks, and here's what we're doing on the new building. And it's like, okay, cool. Load that into I'm not trying to say how it works because I haven't seen it yet or used it yet, but like you've created something that everybody in the company can kind of engage with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, again, the goal is just to remove roadblocks in this process. And these are things that the business owner probably doesn't think about every day, but somebody has to, right?
Absolutely.
Like if you have someone on the job site taking photos, then what? What are they doing with those photos? Are they emailing them to someone at your marketing agency? Are they texting them to what, right? And then what? That's being woven into a social post when? This week? Next week? For next month?
Right.
Right. So the agility is not there because it's such a cumbersome process. So we've removed all those barriers, and you add your photo and it's going straight to your content library that lives in ProMode, that is universal. It has everything your brand has ever done. And then with a couple of words, like, okay, this is a project of, we did Crown Center sidewalk, right? And John, the project manager, led the team. That's all the information you need to give for ProMode to say, let's make 4 blogs about that for the next year. Let's make 3 social posts about that this week, right now. Let's amplify that. And by the way, that's going into the email newsletter, and it's formatting it for us in real time. So it turns, one way we say it is, it turns insights into actionable insights, erasing the space between those two things. And in a multitude of ways. That's one way. Like the ease of content publication and the speed that it happens is amazing. But there's some other pieces to that too.
Absolutely. And on the other pieces, I did notice on the website, it says that the ProMode team, there's still like a final human checkpoint, right, before this stuff gets out, which I thought was super savvy, of course, and smart. So, because my mind, I've done research before talking to you today. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it. And I know that this is going to be, I love it. I love it. Yo, the co-founder of ProMode.ai is figuring it out too. I dig it. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. What else would you say, like, to kind of help people understand this, right? Because you've talked about like this is, you've already explained in the context of like, if you work with a marketing agency, you know all these pains and asses, you know that these things come up. But like, I see so much value in this too for the person who's like, I don't have a marketing budget and hasn't hired somebody. And like, ProMode.ai is there. I looked at the pricing too. We'll put that all in the show notes and it's on your site. We'll let you guys talk about that. But, all I have to say again, I haven't changed much in this podcast, right? I asked 4 questions in one question. But what else would you use to help us kind of understand like
Yeah.
how this works?
Well, I think that's a good time to mention, and I think, this kind of leads into another topic about professional development and being true to who you are and things that I think everybody can relate to. I am a firm believer in staying in your lane, staying in your zone of genius, figuring out what you're really good at, and then don't force yourself to be something you're not, right? Because I think that's where we don't see our best selves. And sometimes it takes some deep introspection to say, am I just refusing to grow or am I just staying in my lane? Right. So I really try to grow within my lane. And my lane is things like sales and marketing and communication and peopling, right? That's my zone. And there's plenty of growth there for me to do for the rest of my life. I am not a software developer. I am not an AI engineer, but I am somebody who's deeply curious about it, who has committed to learning about it, and who's recognized greatness in other people in this area. So my business partner, Matt Scanlon, is everything I'm not in the world of AI. He is the AI developer, genius, wizard, builder of things in this ProMode world. So it's really because of him that we're able to do this. And he's taught me a lot about AI and the differences between AI and what's possible, what's not possible, what's next, which has been super helpful. But I think this might be a good time to talk about how ProMode works and how it's different than like a ChatGPT.
Absolutely. Yep. Sounds good to me.
So, so tools like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Grok, all of these tools, they're generative AI. So these retail AI solutions that you and I use all the time are generative AI. And so what that means is we're entering a prompt, whatever that may be. I want a blog, I want an image for my podcast thumbnail, and the AI is consulting the large language model that's been built for that particular chat interface to find the best answer for us. Okay. There's a lot of value in that. We can use that for lots of things, but there are some serious limitations to the output. And the reason is because that large language model, the source data for ChatGPT, for any of these others, Google Gemini, the source data is not everything there is to ever know. The source data is finite. So in the case of ChatGPT, the source data is Wikipedia. Everything ChatGPT is feeding us is coming from Wikipedia. Did you know that?
I knew it was from some public source and it was a dated model as well.
Right. And it's restricted by the date. It's like 2021, I believe, is when ChatGPT's data set was closed. So
Absolutely.
everything we're accessing there is prior to that. It's still super useful. I encourage people to get in there and use it and play around with it. Especially if you know what level of output you're looking for, right? I think where AI can get kind of wonky is when we start putting in prompts and we're not even sure what the deliverable is supposed to look like, right? I did that myself recently. I thought just informing ProMode. I'll be honest. I asked ChatGPT to write an operation agreement for Matt and I to move forward with. And to me, it looked great. I was like, this is a great operation agreement. This is perfect. Well, guess what? Heather's not an attorney. Doesn't know what an operation agreement needs to look like. So thankfully, I do have an attorney who did look at it. And he's like, well, not quite. This doesn't have a lot of the things I think would be good for you two in particular, because he knew who we are and what matters to us. And it was impossible for me to input all of that into my prompt because I didn't even know what was important to me that would be relevant inside an operations agreement contract because I'm not an attorney, right? But my attorney knows, okay, these are the considerations of Heather, these are the considerations of Matt. This is how we should weave it into the OA. He has that knowledge base. So if he were to use a chat GPT, he's going to get a very different output, right?
Right.
Anyway, so there's limitations when we're using generative AI, which is why if you've ever tried to create marketing content with a chat GPT or Perplexity or any of these other ones, you've probably noticed it's a little generic. It's a little boilerplate. It's fine sometimes, right? And you might think, well, if I can just correct a couple little things, that's good enough. But it's not amazing. And it certainly doesn't seem custom for your brand. So the way ProMode works is not generative AI. It's a process, and this is an industry term. We did not make it up. It's a process called RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. So if you read anything about what large companies are doing, like enterprise level companies are doing with AI, a lot of them are building their own LLMs. And they're doing that for a variety of reasons. One is security, so that they're not exposing sensitive intellectual property to an open source chat interface. And the other reason is so that they can get more accurate, reliable input from their AI.
LLM is learning language model or language
Large,
learning model.
large language model.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Right.
Large language model. And so large companies are building these owned LLMs, not necessarily for marketing, for operations, for bookkeeping, for financial modeling, forecasting, all kinds of very sophisticated things. And they're doing this using the RAG technique or method of AI. So we use the same technology, the same process that these large companies are paying millions of dollars to build. But we are able to build a unique RAG. It's just what it's called. I wish it wasn't, but that's what it is.
It's
A
amazing.
unique, right, RAG instance for each client we have. So it allows these clients to tap into enterprise level AI technology for a very small fraction of the price. And so what this means is rather than you typing in a prompt, and good luck with that, you better be really good at it, spend some time learning how to do it. But rather than typing a prompt, generating an output, and then having to obviously make that output into something, your social post, your email, whatever. The way RAG works is when we take on a new client at ProMode, we ingest all of your marketing content. Day one, we're taking in every line of code from your website, every word, every image, every video, everything off your website that's ever been said about you. We're taking everything off of social media that you've ever posted, and all of that is living inside of an owned database the client always owns, but we manage. So then that database, and it's a vector database, and it's going to get technical just for a second, and I'll only explain it as far as I understand it. So the vector database compresses all of these pieces of information, all of this content, and then it's finding statistically significant trends of words. Like, have you ever seen like a word cloud?
Yes,
Where
absolutely.
some words are bigger than others and some words are really small.
It's a favorite of quarterly gatherings and annual all
Right.
hands meetings for sure.
Yeah, it really
For
makes
good
you look
reason.
right. It really makes it look like you did something when you show a word cloud, right?
Absolutely.
That's kind of how a vector database works. It's saying, oh, Steve's Concrete uses the word innovative more than other companies. Steve's Concrete uses the word Midwest versus Kansas City. So it's all these subtle trends, patterns that it's picking up, millions of them. And that is what's used to develop your brand voice. Make sure that all the output that's happening is both accurate and really looks like someone at your company wrote it. Okay, so then that database is what is consulting the LLMs. And we consult 7 LLMs every time we run the RAG for one piece of content. So rather than just saying, let me ask ChatGPT to write a blog, we're consulting 7 different LLMs, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, etc., with your data, not with a generic prompt. We've guided the prompt, like we've guided the direction that that data should go. The output should be a blog. The output should be a social media post, right? But we're using your data to inform what that needs to feel like when it's done. That data is consulting the LLMs, and then the deliverable comes out. We review it. That's the human in the loop machine learning method of RAG. And then it's in your portal for you to review very quickly. And on that cycle goes. So the results are far more custom deliverables that are on brand. The other thing the RAG does that's super important, and if you're in marketing, you'll understand, is your data is not only consulting the LLMs, your data is also consulting other data sources that are relevant to what we're doing. Things like Google Search Console. So we're going to write a blog. Why are we writing a blog? We're writing a blog to attract visitors to your website. How are we doing that? We need to know, what are your audience searching for right now? What keywords should we be focusing on? What topics should we be focusing on for this blog? So the strategy in real time is dictated by these third-party data sources like Google Search Console, like SEMrush. That data feed is connected to your RAG to guide your strategy. And to be honest, this is what agencies try to do. They look at things like Google Search Console, they look at SEMrush or other SEO tools to know how to write their content. The problem is they're typically not able to look at it every single time they're writing a blog. And oftentimes there are things called vanity metrics at play. And so it's not uncommon. I've seen it at least 6 times in the past 2 weeks, where a client I'm working with or a prospect I'm talking to has blogs on their website, content on their website that is completely irrelevant to their business. For instance, I saw a land surveying company. They do government projects, like public utilities projects. It's a very sophisticated company. They do land surveying. They had 3 blogs on their website about cybersecurity. Why? Because their SEO guy at the agency they're using said, hey, cybersecurity is a hot topic. We should be writing about cybersecurity to get more traffic. But it doesn't take a genius to know anyone looking for cybersecurity who happens to find that article there's almost a 0% chance that that person would also need land surveying services for public utilities. Right? So these
Right.
agencies, and this is not all agencies, I'm not trying to paint them all as bad, but it is a common practice to write blog articles that will intentionally get bad site traffic so that they can then show that client an increase in their site traffic. It was irrelevant. So when we use the RAG method, that never happens. We do not get dummy content that is created for the sole purpose of pumping vanity metrics to
Right.
impress the client. No, we're writing about what you do. We're writing for the people that you want to talk to.
Absolutely. My mind is blown, of course. All right. So having heard you explain that, where ProMode is at right now, you said we have a test client that's going through. Like, can you tell us about that journey? Like, if people hear this, in November when this episode launches, are they going to be able to sign up? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actively signing clients right now. we're ready to go. We've got our onboarding process extremely well documented, thanks to my business partner. So the way that works is it takes about a week to onboard and start seeing content in your portal. Yeah, so it's super fast. It's awesome. And you mentioned the price point. So it's a flat fee, and everything was intentional and to answer a problem. Clients over and over again would tell me how they didn't like paying for hours with agencies. And I agreed with it. I thought this is an antiquated model, paying for hours. Just from a practical standpoint, I think it doesn't make sense to pay for hours of people that you can't see. Granted, there's some caveats to that. An attorney, you're going to pay them by the hour, and you just kind of have to trust that they're not jerking you around on that. But with agencies, it's very common to buy 30, 40, 50 hours a month from an agency and pay a billable hourly rate of $150 to $250 an hour. And you don't have to be in that world very long to start seeing, why are we doing this? On the agency side, I saw over and over again, agencies go over the hours and not bill for those over hours. And then on the client side, I saw just as often, they're paying for hours, but the hours they're paying for are for an intern who's not even paid, who's doing their work, who's still in college, doesn't know anything about that industry, and business owners writing a check for $165 for that hour of that person that honestly shouldn't be compensated like that. So it's just inefficiency on both sides, and it doesn't make sense. So I think we're going to see, not just with ProMode, but with many other marketing models, we're already seeing it, value-based pricing. A list of deliverables and a price tag associated with those, and it takes how long it takes. I think that transparency and simplicity in pricing is a long time coming. That's what we've adhered to with ProMode. So with ProMode is the engine that produces the content, right? So that's the blogs, the social media, the email marketing, those things, right? And SEO. So that piece is $2,500 a month, and it produces 125 pieces of content a month.
You said enterprise companies earlier are creating 80 pieces of content per month, and ProMode is doing 125.
Right. And now, full disclosure, ProMode produces more content than you will likely ever approve on purpose. So if you approve 60% of that content in the course of a month, we want you to actively reject all the things that you don't like. Because every time you're rejecting something, you're informing your system, and it is getting better and better and optimizing over time. So one thing we say is working with an agency often starts out very good, right? It's kind of the honeymoon period. New agency, they really are giving us all this time and attention and making us feel special. Well, you're a brand new check, right? So yeah, it's going to be really great. There's this honeymoon glow is going to happen. And then over time, it's very common, 3, 6, 9 months down the road, results start to slip, deliverables start to slip, and the honeymoon's over. ProMode works the exact opposite. It becomes more custom, more curated, better, more optimized with time, because that is how machine learning works. Yeah, so we want you to go in and reject content that is not hitting the mark. There's more of those rejections initially, even though it's really interesting. The content I've seen coming out so far has been so good, like so rich and deep. Like one of our tests was like a concrete company, and ProMode made a social post about the history of concrete, from cobblestones to concrete and the Roman Empire. And this might sound like that's a lot. That's like too much. But it did such a good job of walking that line between still being branded, like still using brand language from that company, but weaving in enough interesting historical facts and education that it was actually like really fun to read. And went a level deeper than I've seen agencies go in years. So, but that might just not be your thing, right? If you own that concrete company and you say, I cannot handle this. We do not want the history of concrete in our social media. That's not our vibe. That's fine. So then you would just open that post, make a little comment. We don't like history stuff in our posts. Boom. Now ProMode knows that. You'll never see that again. Right?
Right. So amazing. The one thing, and I don't know why this just came up, but I thought about it after our first conversation in episode 7. And then in the beginning, when you were talking about the marketing agent, things that you still do, very boutique, but media buying, and you have mentioned, working with more conservative outlets. You found a niche with conservative companies and places like the Daily Wire. I think we haven't gone to that territory on this show, right? We've had guests that have expressed, where they're at with things like in the economy and philosophies on business and types of nonprofits. A lot of that heart and soul has come out. How did you get into focusing with more conservative outlets and why?
That's really simple, really. I mean, that's what I listen to. That's the media I consume. And I've done media buying for years for a variety of national clients. And I started thinking, what if I just go to market as a conservative media buyer? What if I just say that that's what I am? Because that's what I listen to. That's what I enjoy. The other interesting thing is, a lot of these national brands use large agencies, right? They're using large marketing agencies on the coasts, large cities. I'm thinking of a few of them right now that I know my clients use or have used, like 2,000 plus headcount agencies, global agencies. Marketing is historically an industry, a field that attracts a fairly liberal mindset. It just does. So I think because most of the team members at these large agencies that these national brands are using and trusting for their marketing guidance and direction, because those agencies are very not conservative, and the people who work there they're not listening to Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson. They're listening to other things. And so they recommend the things that they know, the world they know is what they recommend to their clients. When in reality, it could be that some of these conservative outlets would be amazing for these advertisers. And we're seeing more and more even neutral brands advertising in conservative spaces, like stamps.com and ZipRecruiter. These are not conservative brands. These are very neutral brands in the market, but they go heavy on conservative advertising because they're smart.
Absolutely.
They're smart because 80% of C-level execs identify as conservative. So even if you are in a B2B national playground, it's very smart to think about, how do we reach conservative media outlets? Maybe it's a live read, maybe it's a recorded spot. It depends on what your budget is, your goal is, all those things. But it's an audience that should not be ignored. It is ever growing, and there's a huge saturation of business owners. And then on the B2C front, business to consumer advertising, there's a lot of net worth listening to those media outlets. So if you're selling bedding, right, working with a new brand right now, they're a national bedding company. They sell not betting, which is another thing, but sheets and linens and things like that.
Right.
They recognize that conservative audiences like their message because they're made in the USA. And so they want
100%.
to lean on the made in the USA message and do that with a crowd that they know it will resonate with, which happens to be a conservative audience. So that's
Absolutely.
kind of why I positioned myself that way. It's authentic to who I am. I'm not a super political person. I'm not, I'm not like a diehard supporter of any individual. But I really enjoy a free market, enjoy freedom and
It's kind of
rights.
nice, right? Yeah, rights and freedom are kind of good things, right? And that's something too Stephanie and I both appreciate about you and your online presence, and we've talked about it as well, how you are able to speak about these things in a way that just makes so much sense. Like you said, I'm not particularly like a political person. You speak about it in a way, it makes a lot of sense, and it just is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a fun time of year and a fun time of every 4 years
Yep,
when it's on our minds, like
yep,
um, the divisive rhetoric is everywhere.
big
But,
time.
I think like I'm doing some hard stuff in my life with the, business and personal, raising kids, and so are you, right?
Yep.
Um, I just think life is hard enough. There are challenges every single day, right? It's a challenge, and everybody has those challenges, right? If you're working, raising a family, trying to pay your bills, trying to keep everything afloat, like that's enough to worry about. So, yeah, I like talking about issues. I like talking politics and kind of macroeconomics and all of that, but I'm not inclined to let that divide me from other people or use it as some kind of superiority grandstand in any way. And it's funny, you see it on Facebook. I think everybody has those few people in their Facebook zeitgeist who's kind of like, if you're a pro this person, we can't be friends. If you're a pro this person, we can't be friends. And it's like, buddy, what's going on? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? What's really going on? Is your wife not talking to you? Are your kids estranged? Did your boss yell at you today? Like, what's going
Yeah,
on that this is what you're hanging on to as a divisive thing?
absolutely.
I just think it's not worth drawing lines in the sand like that
Nope.
unless you come after my rights, and then we have a problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you on that 100%. Uh, so we have covered what ProMode does. We talked about, your origin story, went, further down the road than we did last time as well, which is great. I love seeing that. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you've been thinking, like as we've been having this conversation, that you feel like people should know before we conclude here?
I think to business owners who are in B2B, if you're working with an agency and you love them, stay with them. If you love working with your agency, if you're seeing results, if you're seeing ROI, if you're happy with the experience, stay with them. I'm all for it. But if you are in B2B and you've used agencies, maybe you're currently using an agency and you don't love it, if you're only producing 10, 12 pieces of content a month and you're paying $6,500 a month for an agency to do that work, that's a really good time to come talk to me. I'd love to show you ProMode, show you look at the portal, give you an idea of what it feels like to use it, and have you get started.
I noticed that too on the website. We'll share that, but you can book a free demo. I'm guessing that's the portal right there. Everybody, you heard it from Heather herself. ProMode is amazing. It's revolutionary. We will be seeing how this grows and develops over time, but I really do think that you're really onto something here.
No, I mean it is exciting. It's revolutionary as far as I have seen, and it's only a matter of time before this statement is proven wrong. We're the only ones doing this. I have not seen another retrieval augmented generation marketing platform for mid-market. If you go searching for solutions similar, what you'll find are custom solutions for enterprise that do not advertise pricing, and those are all priced one-off and are very expensive. The other tools, and this is just a survey of the landscape real quick, the other tools that exist that might look similar-ish are using AI wrappers, like URAPPERS, meaning it's really just another interface that's directly connected to a chat GPT. And those are popping up everywhere, and those are usually very cheap, like 30, $40 a month. Like Blaze.ai is one, and it's creating content but it's not using your data to do that. So you're going to see the same quality of content as like a chat GPT or something similar. So this method does seem to be very unique in the space. I have no doubt that we will have competition. There will be others popping up with similar models. And I think there's room for thousands.
It's incredible. Heather, I so appreciate you coming on the show again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so cool. All right, everybody, go look at the show notes. Go set up a demo with ProMode.ai if you are a business owner and want to learn more about it. Thank you so much.